Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where we focus on food security, emergency preparedness, and self-reliance. Today, it's food security and emergency preparedness because we are going to once again use our Cento tomato paste, or passata, to make some fast roasted tomato paste. I'm very excited about this. We are so loving the fast things that we can do with having this passata or this puree as the basis for so many things. We have one more video to do after this one, and then we'll be done with this series. Meanwhile, Jim and I are just stocking up on the Cento. It's very hard to find in our area. We really have only found one store all the way in 40 miles away to the big store that we go to sometimes. And even then, sometimes they're very low on stock. So when we see them, we buy them, and we're building up our own supply of them because they are so extraordinarily versatile. And I continue to enjoy a glass of tomato juice every morning made by this Cento. It's just really changed the way we do a lot of things. Now, the roasted tomato paste recipe is a tested recipe in this Ball book. It's called the All New Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. And I did a video maybe 3 years ago, maybe longer, on this exact recipe, but I did it according to the recipe. And let me just tell you the steps that I had to go to. And you can go look at that other video. It is one of our early videos. I look ridiculous. The lighting isn't good, the sound isn't good. We've come a long way. But in any case, I followed the recipe exactly, starting with 12 pounds of tomatoes, Roma tomatoes. These are also Italian tomatoes. These are the paste tomatoes. I'd cut them in half, squeeze the seeds out, put them face down here, and bake them, roast them until they were soft. Then I ran them through the food processor to get the puree, and then we put the puree right here and back in the baking sheet and baked it for 2 or 3 hours until it was the consistency of tomato paste. It was wonderful tomato paste, but it took all day long. It was an exhausting procedure. But today, all of that front end stuff is done because we're going to start with it already in puree. Now, what I have done is this recipe calls for 4-ounce jars. And this is one thing that attracted me to this recipe in the first place. This is a regular can of tomato paste. This is 6 ounces. Rarely do I ever use this much, so I have a half a can or 3/4 of a can left after I've only used a tablespoon or two, and so I spoon it into a baggie and put it in the freezer or put it in a different container and keep it in the refrigerator until it can kind of walk away on its own, if you know what I mean. But while doing it in these 4-ounce jars will give me less of a hassle. And so I'm hoping to be able to have several of these. I don't use tomato paste all that often, but I don't like to be wasteful either. And so this will help with that. Now, one thing about this is it's a little iffy to know what the conversion rate between 12 pounds of tomatoes and this can is. So what I have decided to do is, now I'm very familiar now with the consistency of this Cento, and I'm thinking probably the volume needs to be decreased by half in order to get the thickness of a tomato paste. Now that is my best guess. We'll wait and see if that happens. But we're going to do it in this video so that when we're done, I can give you the actual turnout so that you won't have to go through a questioning period of wondering. We'll be able to figure it all out. So next time we know exactly how much to count on. So these are each 28 ounces. So if I do 2 of them and cook them down to where there's the consistency of, there's the volume of only 1 can, that would be 28 ounces of the paste, which would be 7 of these. So I don't know. I have 12 little jars ready over here. We'll just have to sort of see. Now, when we get close to that time of measuring what the consistency is, I'm going to open this can because I have a recipe that I'm going to use this in for our dinner tonight, and we'll be able to compare the consistency of what's in this can with what we turn up with here. Now, this is from Costco. It is organic tomato paste, And the ingredients here are organic tomatoes and citric acid. Now, because this is a tomato product, we will be acidifying it according to the volume that we have right here. USDA says that we need to add a tablespoon of canned or bottled or commercially prepared lemon juice, a tablespoon per pint. So when we pour these into this bowl, we're going to have the equivalent of 3.5 pints. So that's going to be about 1/4 cup of this lemon juice. This doesn't have any salt in it. I'm not going to put any salt in mine either. This recipe, this tested recipe, calls for a tablespoon of salt, and then in parentheses it says optional. So I'm opting out of the salt. So here's what we're going to do. Open the cans, dump everything in here, acidify, mix, then we're going to spread it in 2 baking sheets and put it in the oven, and then we're going to roast it until the water has evaporated and we get the consistency here. The reason that I love this recipe is that we are not boiling it down on the stove, because as most of you will know, that when you boil thick, viscous, tomatoey stuff, the boiling just pops up and it splatters everywhere. Because we're evaporating it down, we don't want to put a lid on. We can put a lid off to the side so the steam can still escape. But it is a big mess, and sometimes I get splattered. But doing it in an oven, no fuss, no mess, same result. And so that's why I'm excited. Here is this, somebody called this, that is the weirdest can opener I've ever seen. We've shown it on a couple of our videos. It's turning out that I am loving this can opener, and so it is now in our Amazon store. And it opens right here under this lip instead of right here along this edge. And it is just the neatest thing. We have opened all sizes of cans, including number 10 cans. It does a great job on opening number 10 cans. So it is now in our Amazon store. And that's all there is to it. It is just great. So we will get these into the bowl and be right back. All right, so this is the last of it. So we can see how thick this is. So I think twice as thick is going to be about right, but I don't know, we'll see. Now, the next step is to acidify. So I'm going to put 1/4 cup here. And we're going to stir this up. Mix it in completely. I'm going to check this with our litmus paper just to verify that the acid is below 4.6 pH, so that it puts it for sure down in the high acid range below 4.6, so that we can water bath can it, and that's what is called for in the recipe. I had a really good question from actually a couple of our subscribers who said, Pam, when you check tomato juice, or anything with tomato, how can you tell on the litmus paper whether it really is the color turning or whether it's the tomato juice that is staining? And I thought, how can I demonstrate that? Because the quick answer, I said, well, I always just scrape off the juice and then it leaves what the chemical reaction has shown us. But that wasn't really a good enough answer. So today I have a small piece of our white printer paper, which is about the same weight and consistency of our litmus paper. And when I put that in and pull it out, it has tomato stuff on it. But when I scoop it away, look at that. None of the tomato stays or stains. And so that's why I know that when I do a piece of litmus paper and do the same thing, that's the color of the chemical reaction.
I can't see it.
So we're going to compare, and we want to be sure that it is, here's 4, here's 3,
closer to 3.
It is closer to 3. And so we are below 4.6. 4.6 would be between here and here, but it is clearly right here. So we are good to go. So this has now been acidified, and remember that we acidify tomato products whether we water bath can them or pressure can them. We are going to put these in a 350 oven. I'm going to spread them fairly thin. Okay. So let's see what this looks like. All right, here we are. I think this one has a little bit more than this one, so we may have we may have them finish at different times. I suspect that this is going to take between 2 and 3 hours to cook these down in a 350 oven. So we'll see what happens, and we will be back. We'll probably check them about halfway through or sometime in the middle and bring you back so we can see how they're coming along. And so we will just go from there. See you soon. It's been about an hour, and the house is beginning to fill with the smell of roasting tomatoes. It's a nice smell. So I just went into the oven and checked the trays. I pulled the first one out, stirred it around, and put it back in the oven. I'm going to pull the second one out so you can see what I did. And then in that process, I'm going to switch the trays for a more even doneness. Now, before I put them in the oven, I did equalize the amounts on both, and I think it worked out a little bit better. So I'm going to go get that second tray. Hopefully you can see how steamy that is.
Yeah, we can.
So it's getting quite done around the edges here, getting close even. But I'm just going to stir this up so it's evaporating nicely. We don't want it to burn. Certainly is getting thicker, so that's good. All right, this is going back in the oven. At least another hour, probably more. So we'll see you along the way. I've been checking every half hour, and I should have been checking every 15 minutes because this got done faster than I anticipated. It was just under 2 hours. So take a look here. We have one tray that is a little bit overdone, but I don't think it's ruined. I think, rather, what I'm going to do is just add it to this side over here, avoiding the places that are burned from what I can get up. Oh, I feel bad about this. We have almost tomato leather here. But I still think we'll be able to estimate. So I'm going to work on this and blending the two. I'll sprinkle a little bit more water. Jim gave a really good suggestion there. And we'll be back when we're ready to put it in the jars. All right, well, we are improvising, but I think that we've done okay given the circumstances. Next time I will know to watch it every 15 minutes instead of every 30 minutes. So that's one thing we learned. Okay, so here is this open. And
That looks real close.
I know, it's perfect. My gosh, it is just perfect. It can't be cold. Now, I've mixed the two together, so they are the equal consistency throughout. I put them in this bowl, and we are going to microwave this until they are hot again. And then we will be putting the hot paste into hot jars. The jars are already over there in the sink in a pan of hot water, so they are ready to go. So as soon as we get these hot, I'm going to clear the deck and we'll come back and load these jars and get them over there in the canner. So it is all steamy again, the jars are hot, and we're going to try to do this with the least amount of waste possible and mess. I bet we only get about 4 jars.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that.
All right, so we're going to check for air. Make sure we have 1/4 of an inch. And we're wiping the rims. This is just a water-dampened paper towel. Because these are such small jars, I am doing a full water bath rather than steam canning, so the water will need to come up over the top at least 2 inches. So we're going to get these in the canner right now. Jim is going to come around so that you can see what the inside of the canner looks like. This is just my 6-quart stainless steel pot from my regular set. There's plenty of room in here to do 4 little jars. The water is simmering. It's not yet boiling. The water is 1 inch at least over those jars, and you see that there is a little rack in the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on. The processing time for those little jars is 40 minutes at sea level. Because we are at 5,000 feet, we have to add an extra 10 minutes. And so we will be processing for 50 minutes for this. Now, what we have learned so far is that this can opener didn't do too well on the little 6-ounce can of tomato paste. With every other can we've tried, it has worked just great. But there's a caveat for you. We've also learned we need to check more often. We got 4 jars, which is exactly what the recipe made. The tested recipe also makes 4 4-ounce jars, starting with 12 pounds of tomatoes. I think we would have had about 5 or 6 jars, probably closer to 6. And since we spent $7 on 2 cans of Cento, there are $3.50 a piece where we live, that means that the jars would be a little over $1 a piece. And you can compare that with the price of tomato paste in your area and the little bit of time that it takes to see if it is worthwhile to you. It is worthwhile to me to get some canned in a smaller jar. So we will be back when these are completely processed and ready to be taken out of the canner. Here is the last one from the canner. 4 lovely little jars of very high quality tomato paste because it was made from very high quality tomato puree. As you check on the prices for tomato paste in your area, be sure and read the label, the ingredients. And this may be a little bit more expensive. We were kind of looking online and it seems like maybe these did cost a little bit more, but comparing like Contadina brand, or I don't know if Cento has tomato paste, but I would compare the higher level brands' prices with what we have paid for ours, or what you would pay for the Cento, and then the resulting yield that you would have from the same thing that we did, which I think is going to be about 6 of these little 4-ounce containers. In any case, I love this. I will probably do it again now that I have the routine to where I know what to look for, and there would be very little waste next time because I would be watching much more closely that last hour, every 15 minutes, maybe even every 10 minutes, because boy, it went from not any brown spots to having those brownish spots within a 15-minute period. So my bad on that. But knowing what to do and figuring out how to solve problems as they occur in canning is all part of the process. It is part of being skilled canner, and that's what we're working toward for all of us. So thank you so much for being with us today. Hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you very soon for another video.